haven't met the perfect guy. I'm not on the path to having that marriage with the 2 kids and that house with the picket fence by the time I'm 32. Like, I don't really love this job. The guys are getting promoted ahead of me. I'm not sure I chose the right profession. I'm trying to pay my student loans, all those things. And you start thinking it's all falling apart because you planned all these other things that aren't happening.
Today's guest is a repeat offender, Dana Perino. She's a New York Times bestselling author of And the Good News Is, and I'm sure the book we're talking about today will be another New York Times bestseller.
I feel like it's the right book at the right time for people. And it was specifically targeted to young women going through that quarter life crisis.
She's the beloved co-host of Fox News The Five and America's Newsroom. You tell Peter, okay, I'm going to quit. Today's the day I'm going to resign.
Yeah.
And that's the day you got offered
The job.
the job of the White House press secretary.
This is such a crazy story. I would be the second woman to be the press secretary. Hadn't had one since the early Clinton years.
Yep.
And that it was an opportunity to serve at the highest level of my profession.
Hey everyone, you're listening to Superwomen. What we're talking about today is if you are just starting out or you are thinking about your career, there are some must-have rules and incredible pieces of advice, not just from Dana, but from incredible people that you want to read this book and hear about what she has today. Take a listen. Dana, this is special because I get to interview you in your house.
I know. Thank you. I remember so fondly connecting with you several years ago.
During COVID.
Yep. And it was very special. But now we actually get to see each other face to face.
I know. I did that interview in my parents' guest room, which was in a bunk bed. That was like my soundproofing was like a bunk bed.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So it's good to finally be here. And congrats. The book came out yesterday.
Yes.
Which is awesome.
I felt like I was pregnant with that book for 16 months.
Oh my God. That is the worst, most uncomfortable feeling in the universe.
But I'm really thrilled with how it turned out. And I feel like it's the right book at the right time for people.
Yeah. The minute I started reading it, I was like, if every youth could get a copy of this book, I think it's what people need to hear.
Yeah. I just did an interview with Sandra Smith on her show here at Fox News, and she has an 11-year-old daughter. And when she got home last night, her daughter said, "Wait, what's this about?" And she started reading it, and she was like halfway through, and Sandra said, "Do you like it?" She goes, "I love it." And I thought, wow, because I thought that the book would be for like ambitious high school through like maybe 40s.
Yeah.
But maybe it's broader than that. And if you have somebody who is ambitious or just curious about what they think they might want to do in life, you know, in mentoring, I think we talked about this before, there's that saying, you have to see her to be her. Mm-hmm. And the only thing I ever want to do in mentoring is give to them. And the only thing I ask for is that they pass it on.
Yep.
To the next generation too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. This book came at a perfect time because my sister-in-law's eldest, she has her age range from 20 to 5. He's going to college, and she knows how I feel about college. I was like, unless they know what they want to do, they're not going.
Oh.
We're not just paying for like I'm going to figure it out. And she goes, well, kids these days have no idea, and they know less now with the group that she knows about what they want to do. Even into their 20s, they're like still uncertain. So she was for college, and I was like, this is the book that you actually have to read if you don't know. Because I feel like there's so much in it that helps you maybe figure it out, and especially all the advice that you have, which we'll get into, from all your mentors.
Yeah. All my friends, mentors, colleagues, even my college roommate.
So let's dive into the book. It really felt like it was for that. I'm about to graduate college, or I'm in college. I don't know what I want to do and how to approach the workforce. So I'd love to hear your perspective on like what made you write this book.
So the Everything Will Be Okay book I did was a mentoring book specifically for young women. And the subtitle was Life Advice for Young Women from a Former Young Woman. Mm-hmm. And it was specifically targeted to young women going through that quarter life crisis. I went through it. I don't know if you did.
25?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so 25 was about the time that I found that younger people that I've been mentoring, or even for myself, you start to think, wow, nothing I thought that I was going to do in my life is turning out.
Yep.
I haven't met the perfect guy. I'm not on the path to having that marriage with the 2 kids and that house with the picket fence by the time I'm 32. Like, I don't really love this job. The guys are getting promoted ahead of me. I'm not sure I chose the right profession. I'm trying to pay my student loans, all those things. And you start looking too far ahead.
Yeah.
And you start thinking it's all falling apart because you planned all these other things that aren't happening.
Yep.
That is pretty typical for younger women. So my goal was to do something for them that I wish someone had done for me, which is to say, don't worry your 20s away. Okay.
I love that.
If you are an educated American woman, everybody in the world would rather trade places with you.
Right.
Because the opportunity to thrive if you decide in what you want to do, decide how hard you want to work, and then if you make good choices, everything definitely turns out. So I worried my 20s away. I don't want them to worry their 20s away, because when I look back, everything I had planned didn't work out. But again, unanswered prayers, that works out. So then this book, that was during COVID. Post-COVID, we have a different work environment. We have artificial intelligence that's coming. We have a very competitive situation around the world for jobs. You have a changing technology in all sorts of ways, especially just in journalism and what I do. The fact that we can do a podcast, and then I could do a streaming thing on Fox Nation, and I could do something on digital. I'll do something on social media. And then I also do my shows. I'll do radio. It's unbelievable, the explosion of ways to communicate, but that's also a challenge for the careers. The other thing I realized is that I don't want to just pass on advice to young women. The people that I mentored 15 years ago that got me started in mentoring after I left the White House, I really started a group called Minute Mentoring. It was like speed dating, but mentoring for young people, because I found everyone had the same questions. So those people still exist. People coming out of high school, college, they're still asking the same types of questions, getting their first job, getting their first promotion. But all those people are still my friends and people I mentor. But now they are mothers and fathers, executives, managers. The work-life balance thing is really difficult. Making choices about how to spend their time, as you and I were talking about before we got started. All of us have little bits of advice. And what I wanted to do was take something I started called Short Questions with Dana Perino. It was like a little feature here. And ask people I love, that I work with, that I admire, questions about their life that could relate for people that in a snackable content kind of way. Mm-hmm. So when you open the book, almost every page you can say, oh, that's interesting. Mike Rowe has this to say. Selena Zito, Dierks Bentley, Dana Perino, or Bill Hemmer, Jesse Waters, Greg Gutfeld. Wow, Janine Pirro. All of these different people with really thoughtful advice and different career experiences.
I like that it was really diverse in its career experiences. And I think that for people listening and taking notes, especially about, well, the first thing I want to start with is your resume. And that I feel like sometimes I see a resume as people are applying for jobs and it's a novel, or sometimes it's like, I don't actually care what college you went to. I want to see like your job experience or your internship experience to see like what on the ground you actually learned. So I'd love for you to start with why you felt like that chapter and what someone can learn from that part.
Well, have you ever had an experience where somebody asked you for mentoring advice and they come to you and you're in the moment and you're in the zone, you're paying attention, and you think, oh, I know, I want to send your resume to my friend. My friend's hired. And you said, do you have a resume? And they say, oh, I have to work on my resume.
Yeah.
Like, done. I do not want to hear from you.
Right.
Do not come to me for advice.
Right.
If you are not ready for me to say, oh, can I send your resume here or there?
Right.
So that's one of the things. The second thing is the resume has to be something that can pass through either the algorithm test or something that if I send it to somebody that I care about, like if I'm sending your resume, it means I'm saying, I think you are good enough to have my seal of approval and to work for my friend. So it has to be good. And Michelle Chase is a friend of mine who works in HR for her career, works for big companies, and she looks at a lot of resumes. So her advice was terrific. And Dan Barr is another guy who does human resources. I interview him in here. He grew up on Long Island. His dad was a firefighter. I think he's one of 6 children. He has 4 of his own. And he said this one resume still sticks with him. All the typical things. I went to college. I had an internship. I had a volunteer opportunity. I played sports in college. And then it's like I took a round the world trip with my grandmother.
Yeah.
And he was like, what was that like?
Yeah.
And that's the conversation started. It was like always something unique, always something that's like a little surprising that can get a conversation going that breaks you out of the pack.
Yeah, because after a while, I noticed these resumes look the same. It's
All
just
the
this
same.
format the same. And
Well, because also they're all using the same format.
right. They're like, hey, ChatGPT, write me a resume.
Right. I also recently, in addition to a resume, I would love to share this story because it was something very touching that happened partly because of this book. During Women's History Month, Fox News had a big event. I think it might have been bigger in the corporation. And it was a speed dating minute mentoring thing. So
Within the corporation.
Within the corporation.
Okay.
So young people who are young production assistants or wherever they were working here, I would say they were ages 22 to 35. Okay. So they come to this event. They get to meet with different mentors. This one young woman sits down. She's the 4th group to come. And she smiles at me. She says, hi, I'm Jacqueline. And I knew that name. And she said, I'm the one who put that letter in your mailbox.
Oh my gosh.
So this story is incredible because you have to figure out if your resume can't get through the algorithms, take opportunities that might be unconventional and appropriate. She's walking with her aunt, and they're in Bayhead, New Jersey. They're going on a walk, and that's where my husband and I have a home. And this young girl is about to graduate from college, and she really wants to work for Fox News, and she could not figure out a way to get her foot in the door. It just was not working.
Yep.
Had no contacts, nothing. And her aunt said, well, I mean, it's a long shot, but what if you do what Dana suggests? She always talks about writing a good letter. Maybe you could just put a letter in her mailbox with your resume and see what happens.
Yep.
I looked at her and I was like, wait, and you're here?
Yeah.
It would have been about 10 months.
Okay.
I remember getting this letter, reading it, going, it was so well written, super put together, resume looked great. I put it in my backpack, came to Fox, said to my assistant, can we get this to HR? I think she'd be an interesting person to have here. And because I said, this woman's interesting to me.
Yep.
I don't know. And I said, I don't know her. Anyway, she got the job.
Wow.
And that meant so much to me, and that we can all help each other. Like the success pie is not limited.
Correct.
It's limitless.
Yeah.
So by carving a little slice out for her, now my pie got bigger because now I know somebody who works, I think she's in accounting or something, or like in ratings. It's amazing. And I love that story so much because she sat down and she said, I'm Jacqueline.
I love that.
I loved it.
And I love that you remember because you must see a million names.
A million.
Yeah.
But it was different. And it was, I remember that letter. It was so well written.
Yeah. I love that story.
Yeah,
and I
me
love
too.
that it led to this, that she's here now. I want to go back before we go forward because I want to touch on your personal life and some of the hard decisions you had to make that were critical to your career.
Yeah.
And I think some people think I got to stick with this the whole time and I can never change. And you talk about in this that you tell Peter, okay, I'm going to quit. Today's the day I'm going to resign.
Yeah.
And that's the day you got offered
The job.
the job of the White House press secretary.
This is such a crazy story.
And then you took it without then going back to your husband and being like, just kidding, honey.
Yeah.
And he was like, I thought the opposite was going to happen. I thought he was going to be like, babe, come on.
Right.
You know, but he didn't. He was like, fucking yeah, let's
Yeah.
do it. So
Yeah.
I'd love for you to share that because I think you never know what's around the corner. And I think when you're starting out, there's so much more around every corner.
Yes. I'd been the deputy press secretary for quite a while. The chief of staff said, hey, if you don't think you can make it through the last 18 months of the Bush administration with fresh legs, let us know because the president intends to sprint to the finish. And I told Peter that, and I said, I am crawling at the moment. And I had a lot.
And why? Can you go deeper why you were crawling?
Sure,
Like the toll it takes?
We were a nation at war. I was the deputy press secretary at a time when, gosh, thinking back, I didn't even have Twitter or Facebook at the time.
it
There was
didn't
nothing
exist.
like that.
2009?
But they were 18-hour days, and it wasn't like you woke up and were like, oh, I think I'll have a cup of coffee. No, you were shot out of a cannon and high stakes. The press secretary, who I was the deputy to, was Tony Snow, amazing. Unfortunately, passed away a year later in 2008 from cancer. But because he had cancer, he had a lot of treatments, so I filled in a lot, which was great, actually, because it gave me opportunity to be a manager, to be with the president a lot, briefing him. And I did miss my husband, and he was super patient. Like, when you serve in those jobs, your spouse serves right along with you.
Yep.
They have a lot of lonely nights. They pick up a lot of the household duties, things like that. And I said, gosh, another 18 months as the deputy, and then I come out of this. I didn't come from money.
And sorry, why 18 months? Like, why at 18 months did they say we're sprinting to the
It was
finish?
sort of like you wanted people in the job that weren't going to peter out like with 5 months left to go.
Okay.
So it's a smart management move.
Okay.
Which is to say, we have a limited time here.
Yep.
We cannot stay past noon on January 20th, 2009.
Yep.
And so I think it was smart. Most White Houses do something along
At 18
these
months,
lines.
okay.
Yeah. So Peter and I go on a trip. He was running this Hood to Coast race, which is a 24-hour race where it's a relay thing. I don't run. I don't know, but it was fine. They were going to go do that. On the flight there, we talk it through. And basically Peter said, if you did this, then I'd get my wife back and you'd get your life back.
Yeah.
So I was reluctant because I loved my job. I loved working for the president, but I also was trying to be responsible career-wise because I didn't come from money. I had to find some sort of a job because, like, bills were going to be due.
Yep.
And so that's the day. I'm going into the White House. I see Ed Gillespie, head of communications. I said, Ed, can I see you after the meeting? He says, yes, I need to see you too. I said, great. Okay. We do the communications meeting. Everybody's leaving. And Ed said, Dana, do you mind staying behind? Sure, no problem. Not unusual, given the levels that we were. And I sat across from him, and I went to blurt it out because I was so nervous to say I was leaving.
Yeah.
And I went to blurt out, and he goes, do you mind if I go first?
So he hadn't heard the words yet?
No.
Okay.
And I said, okay, yeah, sure. And I sat back. And he said, the president would like to name you the press secretary on Friday. And I said, great. What do we need to do?
So tell me what was going through your mind at that moment.
I knew my life had changed dramatically in an instant.
Right.
That I would be the second woman to be the press secretary. Hadn't had one since the early Clinton years.
Yep.
And that it was an opportunity to serve at the highest level of my profession. And that I would have a great team around me because I built that team. I managed that team. And I knew that if I invested in myself at the time to do the right thing, that my life would get better in the future. And it did.
And did you have any qualms about going home that night or calling Peter?
No. So I left Ed's office at like 8:45 that morning, walked down the stairs to the West Wing. The press secretary's office is about 32 steps from the Oval Office. And I had just a tiny office as a deputy, and I closed the pocket door behind me. And I called Peter. He said, how did it go? And I said, well, Ed said they'd like to make me the press secretary on Friday. And he's like, congratulations, my darling. He was so happy for me.
Oh, my gosh.
And I remember when I got the call to be on the 5 as well, I was kind of annoyed because they called in July of 2011 and said, would you mind coming up for 5 weeks and doing this show in the middle of Manhattan in the middle of the summer? And we're just going to temporary 5 people sitting around a table, like just news of the day stuff. But it would really help us out because we're trying to figure out what we're doing at that 5 o'clock hour. I was like, can I get back to you?
This was right after the administration ended.
Yeah,
though,
it was
right?
a couple years later.
It was a couple of years. Okay.
About a year and a half later.
Okay.
So I was like, yeah, I'll probably do it, but let me just talk with Peter. So I called Peter. He was on business in Korea, so the timing was off. I woke him up at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I told him, can you believe this? Like Fox News, they want me to do this thing, this table, 5 people, 5 o'clock in the middle of the summer for 5 weeks. And he said, congratulations, my darling. This is exactly what you always wanted.
And how did you
like,
forget that it was what you
you're
wanted?
Right. You're right. Yeah. And maybe because at the time I was so afraid that the last call I got was going to be the last call I would ever get.
Right.
And I had a lot of opportunities. I had my own business. I had speaking opportunities. The Minute Mentoring was going pretty strong. And but that wasn't for money. That was just like something I was doing, I was in charge of. And I was on the Broadcasting Board of Governors under President Obama. I had lots of stuff going on. We lived in Washington. I wanted my weekends. I didn't want to have to work that hard. And it turned out that it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And believe it or not, like that show, The 5, it's the number one show in all of cable. And sometimes it's the number one show of all of television on most nights. And they can get you the numbers on it. It's just like shocking. And we started 14 years ago.
Wow. That's a long, incredible run.
It's a long run, right. We're giving the View a run for their money.
I think you're doing a better job. No offense. No
Well,
offense
they
to
give
the
us a
View.
lot of material.
Oh my God. I think they give everyone material. The memes from that show
They do.
are incredible. So this leads me to my next chapter of your book, Keep All the Plates Spinning.
Yeah.
Because now your husband doesn't get his wife back, really, and you don't get your life back. And I say that there's a Wizard of Oz that makes up words, aims them at women to make us feel like failures. And you talk about it, work-life balance.
Yeah.
Never existed for men. Why would it exist for a woman? The other one is imposter syndrome. No one even thought that that was a word until someone said, are you feeling imposter syndrome? Oh, maybe I have. So I'm curious, as again, the younger listeners, when you're like, great, I want this career, but look at the sacrifice it takes. Or look, I won't be able to have kids till later. Or all the things people can worry about as they're worrying their life away. What is your take on keeping all the plates spinning?
One of the pieces of advice I get in there, especially for mothers, it came from Martha McCallum, one of the anchors here. And she said when she was raising her young children, she would never let herself think more than 3 months ahead at a time. Because if you do start thinking about, oh my God, well, in 5 years, but then in 10 years, but like in 20, and then you can start letting your imagination run wild and get away from you. And and miss all the good moments. And I'm not a mother, so I wanted to interview moms in this book. For me, I've found that work-life balance is a little elusive. I love working, and working is part of my life, and I also have fun. And if I didn't get paid to be informed about the news, I'd still be wanting to be informed about the news. I love, that's part of my life. I had great advice from a young woman who is not so young anymore either. I guess, this was 20 years ago. In the White House, she had a different job. She was in national security. She different from me. National security, her hours were insane. And she said she missed birthdays, opportunities to see family, etc. Yep. But she said she doesn't think about work-life balance over the course of a day or a week, but over the course of her life. Mm-hmm. And there's a great book called The Defining Decade by Dr. Meg Jay, where she talks about investing in yourself in your 20s so that your 40s and your 50s will be better. Mm-hmm. I think that's really, really important. For me, I have found that there is freedom in discipline. Okay. I used to want to be somebody who didn't have a routine and didn't need a routine. I wanted to be more free floating.
Yes.
And like, no one's going to tell me what to do. And now, because of my schedule in television, you can't be a minute late.
Yep.
And I like the routine. I like the schedule. I'm like, oh, this is what I do. But then, because I have that time and everybody knows she's not available from 2:30 to 3:30 because she has her Pilates session.
Yep.
And she paid for it. And it better be a good reason if you're asking for her to cancel.
Yep.
That kind of thing helps. But thinking about your work-life balance over the course of your life, I think can be really helpful.
Yep.
Would I say young people take the deputy job? But also if they say, is anyone available to work this weekend? Yes.
Yeah.
How about the holiday? Absolutely.
Not
I'll be
how
here.
much I'm going to get paid to work the weekend.
Nope. No.
Or work the paid holiday.
Now, I do think that there is something I am not really good at, and that is money. Financial anxiety is something I've always had. I wake up every day thinking it's all going to go away tomorrow. I'm like, do we still have money in the bank account? I don't know. I've leaned on Peter to help me deal with that. I read a great book called Die with Zero. Ooh. Highly recommend it.
Okay.
By Bill Perkins. I think you would like it. It's very, very helpful to make you realize that you're not going to end up homeless on the street.
Right.
It was so helpful to me to read this book.
I'm going to get it.
I highly recommend it. If you interview him, please say I sent you.
Okay.
He says I'm the Die with Zero evangelist.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
You also say take vacation.
Yes, and I really learned that from my CEO. Suzanne Scott is an incredibly talented CEO, the most powerful woman in media who gets no attention, asks for no attention, and doesn't get the credit she deserves. She's the one who came up with the 5. She's great at programming and individual. She's the best one-on-one manager.
Yeah.
But also now, when I first met her, she was the head of talent. Now she's the CEO, so she's responsible for the business, and we've never been in a better position. But she's the one who says, for example, remember when the horrible Uvalde shooting happened in Texas, the school shooting? I was on a plane, just getting on a plane, to go to Spain for a significant birthday with a bunch of friends. And I'm looking at this going, oh my gosh, there's so much news breaking. I know what the company needs. They need help. And I got a text from her that said, I know what you're thinking, but there will always be news.
Yeah.
And we need you to go so that your mind and your body is fresh so that you can be your whole self when you get back.
Yep.
And
that's very rare.
It's rare and wonderful. She's fabulous.
Yeah.
She's great.
That's incredible advice.
Yeah.
So I want to turn tactical because I feel like I'd like for people to understand how hard the journey is and like what do you think you did that got you here today? Like if there are 5 big moves throughout your career that were significant and game-changing, aside from obviously being the White House press secretary.
Okay, can I go back a little bit?
Yeah, go back a lot. Go back as late as you want.
In 3rd grade, my dad started this tradition with me where I had to read the Rocky Mountain News and Denver Post before he got home from work.
Okay.
And I had to be prepared to discuss 2 articles before dinner.
And you could understand it in 3rd grade?
I could read.
Yeah.
And I could choose any article I wanted.
Okay.
And also, if you think about it, and it's true, like newspapers try to write to a 5th grade reading level. So
right.
yeah, I could read them. Okay. But I could pick anything I wanted.
Okay.
And then we would discuss. And I remember being on Marine One, obviously many years later, and President Bush asked a question of his advisors. We were on the helicopter, and I knew that I had a different opinion than Karl Rove. And so you have to present it, right? Like, this is what I think, and this is why I think that. And Carl's going to argue his points, and I got to be ready. Like, if there's a question, a follow-up question.
Yep.
And the president listened to everybody, and I'll never forget, we're about to land, and he said, she's exactly right.
Wow.
And I was like, but I had this flashback to the kitchen table.
Right.
And I think it's really important for young girls to have an opportunity to learn how to express yourself confidently in front of a dominant male figure, because that's going to happen in your life. Mm-hmm. You're a businesswoman, you know. You're like, and
yes.
you're like, you're going to stand strong.
Yep.
And you know what? You might have to fake it.
Oh, I faked it.
You might feel like an imposter, but you are going to be there. And when I made the decision not to stay in television, but to go into work on Capitol Hill, that changed my trajectory. And I thought, I'll never get to work in TV now.
Right.
That is something I would want people to really not think about, especially in this book. So many people had a different career compared to what they're doing now. Incredible that way. So I would say going to Capitol Hill was really important. And the old Facebook, I sent postcards to people to keep in touch with them. Meeting Peter on an airplane and moving to England, making that decision to go and be with a guy who's 18 years older than me. He's British. He lived over there. I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to leave my career. I couldn't work because I didn't have a visa, and I did it legally. That was the most significant thing, because my favorite piece of advice to give to people is that choosing to be loved is not a career-limiting decision. Mm-hmm. But then we moved back to San Diego, and in August of 2001, I was in touch with my girlfriends from the postcard days that I'd worked with on Capitol Hill, and said I'd love to come back to D.C. at some point if there's ever an opportunity. 2 weeks later, 9/11 happened, and my girlfriend at Justice Department said, would you still be willing to come back even after all of this?
Wow.
And I said, yes, of course. And I started packing while we were on the phone, and I moved and I worked at the Justice Department. That was very helpful.
And he stayed in San Diego?
Just to wrap up the house.
Right.
I moved October of 2001, and he came in January of 2 months later.
Yep.
He came, and so we started a different life there. And then I think saying yes to the 5 has to be like the most amazing career highlight.
Yep.
After, of course, the White House years, which we've talked about.
Do you think that I do this? I find this, like, when you got the offer of the 5 and you're like, oh, I can't believe I have to do this. And then it turns out to be the most incredible opportunity. I find even now something will happen and inbound will come in. I'll be like, oh, I can't believe that. And then I'm like, just say yes. But I still go into it until I, with that mentality. And then it becomes sometimes the greatest thing or the greatest decision.
I find it a lot with social events, right? Because my days are very long. I get up at 4:45 in the morning. I'm in the bed at 9, hopefully asleep by 9:30. That's my goal. So even in New York, you could go out to something amazing, 3 or 4 different things a night, a lecture, a movie, a premiere,
Yep.
a gallery. Like, there's so many things to do, dinners.
Yep.
And Suzanne, the CEO I mentioned, she said only do 1 weeknight event a week. That helps you be
That would be very hard for me.
But there are some times when you have an event and you think, why did I say yes to this?
Yep.
And then you go, you're like, well, that was fun.
Yeah.
So glad I did that.
Yep.
Yeah, I do find that a little bit. I try to say yes to a lot of things. Saying yes to doing this book when I have these 2 different shows felt like
And
a
a podcast.
lot. And the podcast, yeah. Podcast is fun, and it helps me get briefed for the rest of the week. You know why?
Why?
It's very efficient. My podcast, it's a little selfish.
Oh.
Every week, I try to call a friend, regardless of the podcast, and say, hey, what's up? What are you thinking? What's going on? What do you think's happening?
Right.
Tell me about politics.
These
What do
are
you think?
certain friends, though.
Yeah,
These are
I
not
have
like your girlfriend who lives in New Jersey.
No. These are, my political friends. My
Yes.
political friends. I would be calling them anyway. And I just had this idea. I'm like, why don't I could just turn this into a podcast
Yep.
where I get the benefit of getting the briefing.
Yep.
We keep it to 20 minutes,
Yep.
25 minutes. And I've realized, you know who a lot of my listeners are? The moms.
Yep.
Because they don't need granular detail
Right.
about HR 27. They need to know, is this important for me to pay attention to? And what does it mean when they say they're going to close down the Department of Education?
Right.
What does that mean for me?
Right.
And I always make my guests go back. I'm like, nope. What does that mean? What does that mean? And I've loved it that the moms are listening. It's great.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so my last question is, what is a great piece of advice? Maybe that's not even in this book, because I know I want to leave something special that you either learned the hard way or someone gave to you that was really helpful.
Do you know what I realized the other day is that there is a piece of advice that I forgot to put in the book.
Oh, well, we're going to get it here.
And I've never actually articulated it very well.
Yeah.
And there's a backstory to it. So let me tell you the advice is stop complaining about the weather. Okay?
Really?
Yep.
Shit.
Because, okay, so my family ranches in Wyoming.
Okay.
My uncle, I think, is one of the best cowboy philosophers out there, right? I wouldn't say he was a poet per se, but he's such a great thinker. His mind is so clear. And a few years ago, we were there, and we had some chores we had to do the next day. And I said, well, is it going to be nice? And he said, yep. I said, oh, good. So it's sunny? He said, I don't know. Whatever it is, it's going to be nice. If it's windy, that's good, because we need the seeds to be blown around. If it's raining, we'll stay inside. We can watch a movie. If it's sunny, that'll be good, because we'll be out there and be able to do this or that. And I thought, that is such a great way to eliminate a lot of angst or complaints from your life, is to stop complaining about the weather. Yes, winter is cold. Springs are rainy.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's freezing in December. Who knew? Like, yeah, all those things. When I stopped complaining about the weather, it really opened up room in my life for other things. So I wish I'd put that in there.
Okay, well, you heard it here exclusively.
Yes.
We're no longer complaining about the weather.
Exactly. That means you, Bill Hemmer.
Even though I desperately need sunshine or I'm very depressed. Thank you so much for coming on today. Where can people buy the book, support you, follow you, watch you, even though we know?
Well, Fox News and foxnews.com, Fox News Podcast, Fox News Radio, Fox Nation. There are so many great opportunities here at Fox, and the book is available anywhere books are sold. I am, in particular, very excited about bookshop.org. Mm-hmm. This is a nonprofit that helps independent bookstores. It's so easy. It's just like ordering on Amazon. You can set up an account very easily.
Yep.
And you just put in the zip code of the store that you want to support, and then they send the book for you with a little note, little gift bag, whatever you need, and then the bookstore gets the money.
Yeah.
This is amazing. We should all be doing that.
I know. I'm so upset I found out about Bookshop after my book came out. I was like,
well, you'll have another one.
I don't know, Dana.
Well, just say yes.
Yes.
We just talked about that. Just say yes.
I will do this. Dana Perino, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you guys for listening to today's episode. I also want to ask you to rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts. I know it's a pain in the butt, but it actually helps with search and algorithms. So if you love this podcast, it is an easy way to get it more visible and out there. I also want you to follow me on Instagram at Rebecca Minkoff, at RM Superwomen, and be sure to check out my book, Fearless, The New Rules for Unlocking Creativity, Courage, and Success. Thank you again, and you will hear from me next week.